Hello, guys. Welcome back to SoonerScoop.com YouTube page. I am currently joined by the great Toby Rowland, OU play-by-play man. Also, new gig, News 9. Big news. That's awesome, Toby. Congratulations. Glad you're doing okay, too. Want to talk to you about some OU football stuff. But first, what's just your overall impression so far of SEC Media Days? I know you've been down to Big 12 Media Days and all of that, but what's been your impression so far this week?
It's amazing how many people are here. I mean, I guess we anticipated it would be like this, but to actually see the number of media is mind-boggling that cover this conference. Everybody who's anybody in college football is here. That's pretty cool. I think as far as it goes with Oklahoma, my takeaway from their appearance here was Jackson Arnold. I thought the poise and maturity that he handled himself with was very impressive. You know, we expected Danny and Billy to be good. They're vets. I was a little surprised that Brent Venables decided to bring Jackson Arnold, a redshirt freshman, hasn't started a regular season game. You know, Tennessee is in a similar spot this year, and they didn't bring their quarterback. And then Jackson shows up and just knocked it out of the park. I felt better about him after watching how he performed here because of how mature he was. And then I guess my other big takeaway is, listen, the SEC is the best conference in college football. It's not even close. They have the most knowledgeable fan bases in college football. It's not even close. And yet they are incredibly ignorant on the history of the University of Oklahoma. Yep. Like, I'm stunned by how little they know of Oklahoma football. And I'm talking about media members. Like, we're not even around any fans up here. So, we've seen a little bit of that on Twitter and stuff over the past few months, but being here this week and talking one-on-one with them that, Texas is the catch, and oh, by the way, you're getting Oklahoma too. So we got a lot of educating up to do on the SEC media and fans.
I think it's so funny you mentioned that because I get the same feeling. And I think some of it's, the way the last couple years have gone for Oklahoma, even though last year, OU's a couple plays away from playing in the Big 12 championship game. But I wanted to ask you about Brent's day yesterday because I thought, and you've talked to Brent more than probably any of us, it felt like he was really on point yesterday. It felt like he was confident. He can get long-winded in some of his answers, but he wasn't that way yesterday. I thought his opening statement was really strong. What was your impression of the way Brent handled his first time up on that big podium?
He was good. He was succinct, which is not always his forte, as you mentioned. He gave good answers. He had a really hard time finding who was asking the question in the audience, but there's a lot of lights on him and stuff. So I thought he was great in his breakout sessions on the big stage, all the interviews he did. He looked good on the couch with the cowboy, with the football and everything. So he looks the part. He looks like he belongs. Now, we had an event last night in downtown Dallas that was for donors and season ticket holders, and Brent was a part of that as well. And I think one of his answers went like 12 minutes. So I was kidding him later. I was like, you've been really good all day. You couldn't wait to let out a long answer tonight. So he went on and on a little bit there. But I think he's ready. He knows what the SEC's all about. I think he knows he's probably got, or thinks he's probably got, a better football team than people realize. And there was a couple of different ways they could have walked in here, right? They could have come in Vince McMahon style, kicking over tables saying we're Oklahoma, or they could have come in meek and mild and aw shucks, thank you for inviting us to be in your conference. And he did a good job of kind of splitting the middle, saying we're not going to be intimidated by anything, and yet at the same time I don't think they came across as arrogant.
Yeah, I think it was the right amount of confidence, and there was no arrogance, because I think you can easily come in here and be a little bit arrogant, especially when, like you mentioned, the history of Oklahoma and the success that Brent's had in his career. I wanted to ask you too, what are you looking from Brent in year 3? Because yesterday it was talking a lot about building a program, sustaining, long-term success. And I think that when you look at Brent and what he's trying to build here, it's not so much what he's going to do this year. Obviously, this year's a good litmus test of where they are as a program. But I think it's about what's it look like in 3 years, 5 years. What do you want to see from him, though, this year that says, okay, they're continuing to take another step in the right direction?
I think you got more faith in the patience of Sooner fans than maybe I do. I don't know. We're in year 3 now. And he showed tremendous growth from year 1 to 2. And even though they're going into the SEC, and even though they've got an incredibly difficult schedule and a redshirt freshman quarterback, if they're not in the college football playoff, Sooner fans aren't going to be happy. They're not going to say, hey, good try, just make sure in 5 years you're better. So I think it's important for him to get into the college football playoff this year, and that's going to be really hard to do. You're probably going to have to win 9 games. I think 9 with this schedule probably gets you in. We're all just guessing and how the 12-team playoff's going to work. But this is Oklahoma. This isn't Arkansas. Of all of the expansion teams in the history of the SEC, none of them come close to the tradition Oklahoma's bringing in here. And so I don't mean to put more pressure on him, but I think as far as the fans are concerned, they need to be a college football playoff team this year and not just show signs of getting better. They need to be competing for championships and show that they're one of the big boys.
Yeah. For that to happen, Jackson Arnold, you mentioned him earlier, he's going to have to be the guy. I mean, we live in the OU bubble, and we know the expectations at that position and what's surrounding Jackson. I think we all think that he has elite talent, but what do you want to see from him? I think you mentioned it earlier, that confidence he showed at the podium yesterday, that's a big step in the right direction because you have to be a leader. But what do you want to see from him on the field this year that says, okay, he's got it?
Well, it looks the part. I mean, and we know he's got the skill set. He's got the big arm. He's got a bigger arm than Dylan had. He has a tremendous set, I think, of weapons at the skill positions, especially at wide receiver. I don't know who's going to emerge as the go-to running back. Maybe it'll be Sawchuk, but I think they have dudes in the backfield. And he's got a better tight end than they've had probably the last few years. So for me, it's all about the guys up front for him. If they can protect him, I think he's going to have a good year. I mean, what do you want to see from him? I think you need to see maturity right out of the gates, and you need to see production, right out of the gates. There's no tiptoeing into this thing. You can't play poorly for half a season and say that's okay, he's a freshman. So he's got 3 non-conference games to get it figured out before Tennessee. Skill-wise, he's got everything. He's mobile. He's got the big arm. We've seen touch out of him last year. He's got the mentality. He's got size. He's got an understanding of the system now. This isn't, he was here last year to at least learn things. So I think he's got everything he needs to be successful if he has time. And that, for me, is the biggest question mark about this team. I think defensively, they're on paper as good as they've been in over a decade. I mentioned the skill position guys. It's the offensive line for me. And maybe they're going to be great, but it's a completely rebuilt front, and you never know how that's all going to come together. If it does come together, then Oklahoma's a college football playoff contender.
Yeah. What is your concern level with the offensive line? Because that's been kind of for me, the offseason storyline. Because I feel like, I was telling somebody this morning, I feel like they may have gotten better at almost every single position except for the offensive line. Quarterback, we'll see. I think there's going to be some growing pains there with Jackson, but the talent's there. But the offensive line, if they can get that together, it feels like they could, like you said, be a playoff contender.
I'd say scale 1 to 10, maybe like a 6 or 7. Yeah. It's the biggest concern, but I'm not losing sleep over it at night because Bill Bedenbaugh knows what he's doing. I think the pickup at center was huge for them. I think what Fabechi Wewu showed in the spring is very encouraging. He's a mountain of a human being. So I think they have talent, and Bill Bedenbaugh knows what he's doing. It's just a question mark. They may be fantastic, but I feel like we know what they have everywhere else on the field, and if that comes together, which is a giant if in the SEC, that's the other element here. The defensive fronts in this league are incredible, and if you're shaky, I'm not saying bad, if you're shaky on the offensive line, it's going to be a long year, and you might, Jackson Arnold may be on his backside a lot. So if that comes together up front, this has a chance to be a really good OU team. So I'd say 6 or 7 is my concern level. Yeah.
I'm glad you said Fabechi's last name because I'm pretty sure I've been pronouncing it wrong, and you're the guy to go to on
I'm saying it right. You got to say it with confidence.
Yeah.
That way that they believe it's the right pronunciation. Yeah. I'll let him tell me how to say it for sure.
Yeah, I know he told me too at Media Day when he first transferred, and I still think I'm getting it wrong. Toby, let's dive into some of the schedule because I think that if OU's playing in the Big 12 this year, I think we feel a lot better maybe about what they could do this year, maybe what their record could be. We talked about 9-3. I think you're right. I think that gets them in. When you look at this schedule, what are the games that stick out? I know there's a lot of them, but what are some games that you're like, man, if they can win that one, maybe that could get them to 9-10 wins?
I mean, I think it's a domino effect situation. Tennessee is first. Like there's 5, 6, not coin flip games, but I bet games that when Vegas odds come out, they're like a field goal to 5 points one way or another. So those are coin flip games in college football. And Tennessee's probably going to be the first one of those. And if you go win that, then that gives you momentum to go into the next one. Going to Auburn is going to be tough. That's one of those coin flip games. But they're beatable. Auburn's a beatable team this year. I don't know what Ole Miss is. They're exciting on paper because of all the additions they've had, but it might not work. The gelling of a bunch of transfer personalities and stuff might not work. And they're Ole Miss, and I don't know if they can handle all of the hype or not. So I think that's a winnable game. The end of the gauntlet at the end of the season is brutal, but Alabama doesn't have Nick Saban anymore. We don't know what they are. Nick Saban didn't even pick them to be in the championship game. It's in Norman. It's a winnable game. LSU, if you believe in Garrett Nussmeier, then maybe they're legit, but defensively they were terrible a year ago. Are they better? I don't know. I mean, maybe that's a winnable game. So if you're a glass half full guy, they're all winnable. But if you lose that Tennessee game right out of the blocks, game one in the SEC, and then you look up at the rest of the schedule, you go, oh, crap, like this could be a long year. So for me, I mean, that's easy pick, but that first game against Tennessee sets the tone for everything.
Yeah. Some fun road games this year. You've called some great games, some great atmospheres. Is there one that you're circled like, I can't wait to get in that booth and call that game?
Death Valley. I mean, we haven't played at LSU. I don't know if it's going to be a night game or not, but I can't wait to witness the atmosphere. I'm excited about Ole Miss. A lot of the Ole Miss hype, though, is about the tailgating scene. So, that's not about the actual atmosphere inside Hemingway Stadium. Missouri, we've been there before. And Auburn is going to be awesome. I can't wait to see the eagle fly and all the traditions. But it has the worst radio booth in America.
Really?
It's in the end zone, like not in the corner, like behind the goalposts. So you can't tell at all. I've been told you can't tell what yard line anybody's on. So I have nightmares about us going to Auburn. But it's going to be fun. But the LSU road trip this year, for me, is far and away number one. And it's the last game of the year, so who knows what could be on the line for that one.
Is there a Big 12 venue that you're going to miss the most?
In football?
Yeah.
I mean, it's Fog Allen Fieldhouse is the answer to that. In football, no.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be mean, but Iowa State, no. Kansas State, no. Kansas, no. Oklahoma State's windows don't open up. Those are fun games, but I hate going there. No, I'm fine. Yeah, we still get the Texas game, so I'm fine with leaving behind all the Big 12 venues.
I'm with you there. Last question, Toby. You teach a class in Oklahoma. You still teach the class, right?
Yeah, I think so. There's maybe.
Who was the best student you ever had in that class? Yeah. And what stood out about him?
There have been many students who have gone on to become play-by-play voice. It's a play-by-play class. Yeah. And we've had, maybe a dozen that have gone on to be in the early stages of play-by-play careers. The best student I ever had was George Stoia. Yeah. He was a great student, really bright. You could tell this kid is going to be a sensational. He's the only student I've had where I felt threatened. I was like, this guy could take my job. But it's really a sad story because he went on, like he gave it up, and he went into a career where he tries to dig up dirt, and he hangs out with like Eddie and Carrie. Yeah. So I'm really worried about him. But he has the skill set to be great if he could ever turn his life around. Yeah,
I think I got an A in that class. You're right, though. I gave it up. Now I work for Kerry Murdoch and Eddie Radosevich, who's behind the camera here. But Toby, I really appreciate it. I enjoyed the class. The class was awesome, but I enjoy working side by side with you. We're looking forward to you calling the games this year. Like I said, awesome atmospheres. I think you're going to be awesome in it, and I think they're going to be some close games, some great calls. But thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure you stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of interviews from SEC Media Days, so make sure you like and subscribe to SoonerScoop.com's YouTube page.